Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how you can take the the MySQL credentials that you've been issued and create a connection and log into the MySQL server, and also how to prepare a location for the scripts that you're going to want to run to create your databases. And you may, throughout the semester, at many times, want to drop a database and recreate it so that everything is fresh and brand new and has the data and the structure of the database that we expect in case you've been experimenting. And I do encourage you to experiment. That's entirely okay. Just be sure to clean things up, wipe it away, start with a fresh slate. Here's how you do that. So you might want to bookmark this video so that you can return to this procedure because you'll be using it more than once. So I'm logged into Canvas, and I'm actually in the VDI lab, but you could be doing this through your own machine standalone if you have elected to set up your own MySQL server and lab environment. But the easiest way to do things is just to work through the SBCC VDI lab that we've provided. All the software is running, and all you need to do is open up Canvas, and let's go get the files that we need. So if I come from my home page and pop over to, let's start with Unit 0 and scroll up a little bit, and I'm looking for the files that I will need for this term. And if I scroll up and explore the modules in the course resources, there we go. Under course resources, files I will need this term. Great. And for this portion, I'm interested in the MySQL scripts, the scripts that will create the databases on the MySQL server that I'll be using. So I'm going to go ahead and download those. And by default, those download to a folder called Downloads. And that's not really where I'd like them. So I'm going to open that folder up, and I'm going to right click and just cut those. And I'm going to go over to my S drive. You would, on a standalone machine, you would put this maybe in My Documents or any place that was convenient. S is the student drive in the VDI lab environment. And what's really nice about the S drive is it does not go away all semester long. Unlike the C drive on the virtual desktop machine you happen to be running for one session, which gets wiped out every time you turn that machine off. So this will persist. I can go back to it and reuse it. And I'm going to come over here and let's create a new folder to store our stuff in. And so I'm going to say new folder. I'll call it CIS-107. And let's open that up. And now I'm going to right click and paste that zip file that I created with the SQL scripts. Now I need to expand and extract the files from this archive. If I right click on it and say that I want to extract all, and yes, go ahead. Now it extracted them into, again, on my CIS-107 folder, it took the zip file, created a folder by that name, and here are all my individual SQL files, okay? And we'll take a look and see what the SQL script files are. They're nothing magical there. They're just text files with the SQL language and then with the instructions to create tables and then to put sample data into them. And so we'll look at one of those, but let's look at that using MySQL Workbench, okay? So I'm going to put this aside for now, and I'm going to minimize my Canvas session in the browser, and I'm going to start Workbench. And I'm going to maximize Workbench, use all of the screen real estate available, and I'm going to create a new connection. And because the VDI environment is wiped away every time you shut down the machine, you're going to have to do this every time you start a new session. So you'll get very familiar with doing this. And I'm just going to call this demo student as the connection name. You can name it whatever you would like. And I go back to that connection information referenced in the earlier video as to how to get it. And when I look that up, I see that my host name is swarm.cis.sbcc.net. Your host name may be the same, or in later semesters, it may be different. It does change from time to time. So check the current information that I've provided. And the port number I was assigned was 3335. And I will be using the username root. And then I will go and copy the password I was given. And the password is only for my specific server. And I'm going to store that in a vault. I'll paste it in. There it is. Let's go ahead and test that connection and make sure everything's up and running. And it is. And okay, so that's all good. And I'll say okay. And now I've created that connection. Your SQL server, excuse me, your MySQL server is running 7 by 24 when you're using the VDI cloud. If you have installed a SQL server locally, then you might want to do something like check that your server is running. This is the services plugin from my local computer. And if I go down to MySQL, I see that it is in fact not running right now. So I would want to start it. That's not necessary for the VDI because again, your dedicated MySQL database engine that has been assigned just for you is running 7 by 24 whenever you would like to use it. So that's an optional step only if you're working on a standalone machine that you've set up for yourself. All right, so let me go ahead and open this connection we've created. And here I see that I have some database schemas that I'd already created because I was testing earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and just drop those to show you what your environment would look like to begin with. Okay, so when you come in, you would probably see sys and nothing else. So you have to add the additional database schemas that we'll be working with this term. And by the way, you may be wondering, what is sys? Well, sys actually has the administrative information about the database that is used to manage all of the databases. And isn't that clever? The people who created the database engine said, you know, we have all this configuration information we're going to keep about every new database. Why don't we just make a database to keep track of all of the databases? So cool. We call that in the trade eating your own dog food. And if it's good enough that you can eat your own dog food, that's pretty good dog food. So, all right. Let's go ahead and see how to create a database using a script. So I'm going to come over here to File. I'm going to open a SQL script. And remember where we put those over on the student S drive, and we created the CIS-107 folder, and we unzipped those files into MySQL scripts. And here's a whole bunch of scripts. We may not use all of these scripts in one semester, and they may vary from semester to semester. But this semester, we're going to be using the Elmore script. So let's open that, and now we can see what a script looks like. Let me move the splitter bar around here so we have a little more screen real estate. And you can see that there are statements that say things like, hey, if that database already exists, drop it, then create it, and then use it. And then, you know, if this thing exists, drop it, create this table, create that table, do some other things. And somewhere down near the bottom, there are these inserts into in these really long lines because there's no line breaks in them with all the data that are going into those various tables to populate our database. So let's go ahead and run it. And so we saw a whole bunch of messages come down here. and I see a few warnings, but nothing, no fatal errors. And the warnings are things like drop if it exists, and it says, hey, yeah, but it doesn't exist, so I didn't have to do anything. Not a fatal error, that's all good. Other than that, all green happy check marks. And so if I tell it to refresh my schemas, indeed, I see that the Elmore database exists. And if I take a look, there are some tables there. And nifty little trick here, if I take and right click on one and say, give me a select of the top 1,000 rows, and that's a small table, there's nothing like 1,000 rows in it. And there's data. Okay, good. So that worked. And let's do the same thing for some more databases. So File, Open SQL script, and let's create the Candy 2 database. Open it, run it, look through the results here just to see if it was all happiness, and I see lots of green check marks, a few little yellow warning about this and that, but nothing to be alarmed at, no red errors of any kind, no stop signs or things like that. And so if I refresh the view over here, oh, I see that the Candy database now exists. And we do the same thing again for Carter. So File, Open SQL script, and let's go get Carter's, open it, and run it. And again, happiness and joy. Everything looks good. If I refresh this, I will see that I now have the Carter's database and the Carter's tables, and I can take a look. Let's take a look at the skippers on Carter's charters. Yeah, there's the skipper table, mapping the skipper code to the excursion that they lead. So cool. All right. So that's working well. And our environment is now set up, and we are ready to attack the remainder of part one of the first assignment. So let me momentarily just minimize this, and I have over here in the background our Canvas course shell going, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look under Unit 1. And let me come down to the assignments, and let's take a look at the instructions. All right, we've already done a lot of the instructions for step one or part one. We created the folder, we downloaded the scripts, we unzipped the zip file, and then extracted them, and we made sure MySQL was running. We started MySQL Workbench, we created a connection, we logged in, and we opened and ran some of the files, Elmore, Carter, Candy 2, and of course, you can use that same procedure for any or all of the remaining databases if you'd like to explore or experiment further. Some of the videos this term may reference other databases, and if you want to follow along with the video, you're welcome to install the database by running the SQL script so that you can follow the video a little more closely. Um, and let's see. Now, run each of the scripts, Carter's, Elmore, Candy, and now using MySQL Workbench and our connection, excuse me, and we're going to run this query. And so let me minimize this, come back to our workbench, and let's get a new query tab and paste that in. And it says I'm supposed to replace your first name with your actual first name. So my first name is John, your last name, Beck, and run that. Great. And I need to stretch this out a little bit so we can see the full results. And generally speaking, it's going to ask us to take a screenshot showing all of this material here and all of this material here. So make sure that you get both the query code, and if it's needing adjustment, if you have not quite enough screen real estate, you can move the splitter bar so that everything shows. I really need to see all of the code and as much of the results as will fit on one screen. So there we go. Let's take a look and see how that matches with our instructions. If we come back to the assignment instructions, yes, widen the column, make sure you get everything on the screen. Paste that into the Microsoft Word document that you're going to submit as your answer sheet and label it Step 1 results. And so there you are. That is what you need for Step 1 of Assignment 1. Good luck, and we'll pick it up again in the next video.